It is the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. We're here every single day from 5 to 6 talking about the local issues that matter to you most and taking your phone calls at 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. We'll read your emails as well at randykabc@gmail.com. That's randykabc@gmail.com. We got no time. We got to get right into this today. I have so much sound. There's no way we're going to get to all of it, but I spent an hour listening to a little bit of the LA County Board of Supervisors, including
quite frankly,
I
love the bus driver.
Oh, Janice, I love you. And the LA County Board of Supervisors is in a little bit of a panic right now. See, for the past 10 years, the policy of the LA County Board of Supervisors has been care first, jails last. However, in the face of a whole bunch of legislation that just got passed in Sacramento that Gavin Newsom's about to sign to toughen penalties for repeated retail theft, organized retail theft, even some drug crimes, plus the threat of Prop 36 most likely passing in November, you have certain leaders of the county, most notably Holly Mitchell,
quite frankly,
who are worried that these bills advancing and getting signed into law and Prop 36 passing will severely impact care first, jails last, because most of the new laws and the changes to old laws will go back to jails first. So the Board of Supervisors, this was a motion led by Holly Mitchell, had department heads from every relevant department to go to the Board of Supervisors meeting today to explain how this is going to affect them. And let's just say the criminal justice advocates, the pro-Gascon crowd, which Holly Mitchell is proudly a pro-Gasconer.
If you choose to hold me accountable to Mr. Gascon's work, so be it.
Well, they're a little nervous with all of these things passing and the perpetual pendulum swinging in the other direction. Let's hear what Holly had to say, and we'll get to some of the other departments as they're all reacting to how they're going to continue to exist if now we're going to get tough on crime again.
So I appreciate you being here. With that, I'll turn it back to you, Supervisor Mitchell.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Well, it wouldn't be a Board of Supervisors meeting if we weren't thanking each other for nothing.
Chair, for the past, I think 2 to 3 years, we've all heard reports of retail theft and increasing crimes in the news and in our communities. And
what have you done about it? Oh, nothing. In fact, you endorsed Gascon for another term.
This has clearly resulted in numerous proposed policies, some of which really give me pause and concern that we really may be returning to the times of mass incarceration and undoing all the progress we made toward criminal justice right-sizing, as I choose to refer to it. And
I don't think we're at the right size right now. That's why all this legislation is needed. If the reforms that LA County has been working at for 10 years were successful, the pendulum wouldn't swing in the other direction. But the citizens are sick and tired of seeing the smash and grabs, the home burglaries, the follow home robberies, and all of the other crime that seems to have no consequences.
And true alternatives to incarceration. Hearing your description, I will restate, the pendulum has clearly swung at the state level.
But Holly wants to reiterate, not at the county level. However, I have a feeling the residents of the county have a very different opinion than Holly Mitchell.
To hear you clearly articulate that the code section Prop 36 will address is not the same code sections as the 5 or 6 bills you documented. And so while that says to me that while we understand the 5 or 6 bills from the legislature were supposed to be a reaction to the retailers' initiative, it sounds to me that it really is a dual track.
Yeah, see, originally, the bills that were proposed in the legislature were supposed to appease the Prop 36 movement and take it off the ballot. But they didn't go far enough. So now, in order to make sure they don't look like buffoons, they have to pass the bills that they promoted for half a year. But Prop 36 is still on the ballot. And if these bills go into effect and Prop 36 goes into effect, we are going to be a much tougher on crime state than we used to be.
In terms of increasing misdemeanors to felonies. And if they're increasing these misdemeanors to felonies, I'm asked that this be agendized today to get a sense of the impact on us and our county managed and financed carceral system.
See, what you need to understand is Budgets are all about priorities. And right now, the priority of the LA County Board of Supervisors is to not fund the jails, is to not fund the sheriff's department, and put all the money that should be going to fully staffing up those, to fully making sure there's enough jail space for all the people that need to be in there, even the mental health space. We've been spending money on alternatives to incarceration. We've even got a whole department called JCOD, which I believe stands for Justice, Care, and Opportunities Department. That's the kind of money that should be going towards the things that we need. But no, because we're care first, jails last, we're not going to fund the jail. In fact, up until this year, the Board of Supervisors was all ready to close Men's Central Jail in LA County without a replacement.
But, if they're going to felonies, it looks like it's going to have an impact on the California Department of Corrections at a time when they supposedly articulated closing state jail. So I see heads shaking no. So you're saying even though they're being elevated to felonies, they would still be held in county facilities.
So apparently the bills that are being advanced in the legislature would mandate jail time, not prison time for these felonies. I don't know how a lot of this works. I'm not an attorney, but I believe the Prop 36, when that passes, that will mean prison or treatment mandated felony, or otherwise you're going to go to prison. We're going to find out. But the problem that we're going to run into is if you have a whole bunch more arrests, and those arrests and convictions, because hopefully we'll have a new DA then, will lead to more jail time, is if the jails are full, they're going to start kicking people out anyway.
All the more reason to be having this conversation. So I think for me, and this board for a decade or more started the movement toward a care first vision.
How's that worked out?
Over a decade. And
maybe that'll be the question for this hour. Do you still support, or did you ever support, do you support care first, jails last in LA County? We've had it for 10 years. Are you satisfied? 800-222-KABC.
This reversal will have direct impact on this county and this board's ongoing policies around care first. So if I may, Madam Chair, a couple of quick questions. To our anti-racism, diversity, and inclusion initiative, we heard about AB 2953, the warrantless arrests.
Okay, so one of the bills that's going through seems like a really common sense one. Right now, a police officer cannot arrest somebody for petty theft, stealing, shoplifting, what have you, unless they directly witness it. If a store employee says, hey, that person was stealing, you can cite them, but you can't arrest them. That seems like a nonsensical loophole that was created by Prop 47. But Holly doesn't like the implications of going back to how it should be, where, yes, you give reasonable cause that somebody should be arrested for stealing. Like, I don't know, they have the stolen item in their jacket. The police officer should be able to make the arrest.
I'm curious about what impact that would have on on the work in ARDI, as well as our Care First philosophy and model.
So how would actually arresting people for stealing instead of just giving them a ticket impact Care First, jails last?
Thank you so much for that question, Supervisor. So AB 2943 adopts a tough on crime approach to organized retail theft. And it does so in ways that I think threaten the board's Care First agenda, as well as our countywide racial equity strategic plan.
I'm pretty sure this is the director of youth development for the county. I think a guy named David Carroll. This is one of those departments that is going to lose a whole bunch of funding if we have to start funding the jails again, if we have to start funding the sheriff's department again. So you have a lot of departments that are going to be very loud about how much they oppose this, because that's their funding. That's where their budget comes from the alternatives. Because if we just had more youth programs, there wouldn't be any criming.
Which we have a goal to reduce adult first-time felony convictions. And for that bill, of particular concern is the way in which the proposed legislation increases police discretion for arrests while simultaneously expanding pretrial detention, which could potentially disproportionately target communities of color.
Okay, I don't know how we brought race into this, but sure. Let's go ahead and make this about race. What? All we're talking about is people stealing. If you're trying to make some insinuation about who's doing the stealing, that's on you. I want anybody of any race, of any gender, of any ethnicity who's a thief to be in jail. That's my America.
Beer Institute analyzed the bill and suggested and noted that current theft laws that we have here in the state are, in fact, already harsher than those that are in many other states.
Yeah, that's just not true. That's a Gavin Newsom talking point. California may have a higher threshold than a lot of other states, but California does not aggregate those crimes. So that's where you get the $950 per incident nonsense. And again, right now, a police officer has to directly witness the thieving or the arrest cannot be made. That makes no sense. That's just like another bill that's actually being championed by Scott Wiener of the state Senate. And you're about to applaud Scott Wiener. He authored a bill that Gavin Newsom's about to sign that is going to close the car break-in loophole. Currently, under state law, you need the victim of a car break-in to testify under oath that they definitely locked the door. Otherwise, they cannot successfully prosecute a car break-in. You heard me correctly. Even though, the window was broken, so you could assume that the car was locked, they need the victim to testify. And if you happen to be a tourist from another country, chances are you're not going to testify. Scott Wiener, of all people, is the one that's championing getting rid of that nonsensical loophole.
And what evidence indicates is that AB 2943 is likely to worsen racial disparities in California's criminal justice system by sending more Black and Latino, Latinx people to prison.
Again, why are they bringing race into this? I don't understand it. Especially you look at the makeup of the sheriff's department and the LAPD, and we got plenty of minorities working in there. So what is the implication that LA County is making here? I don't really get it.
One thing to note as well with expanding a warrantless arrest, even on the basis of probable cause, is a potential for mistaken identity. So you could, for example, a law enforcement officer could review a video of potential suspects, go to a different place and make an assumption that just because there were two Black men that were there, that this other Black man who was not involved could potentially be arrested.
Okay, it's good to know that the head of the youth development department for the county assumes that all police officers are racist.
So one of the challenges that we note is that AB 2943 will likely increase the number of Californians charged with felonies, arrested without warrants and/or limited evidence, and detained until trial. And in addition to worsening...
How about the evidence of they stole something?
And in addition to worsening outcomes relating to first-time felonies, such carceral policies typically have detrimental impacts on individuals and communities, which lead to negative impacts on employment, income, and health.
So we need to make sure we don't make any arrests for people that are committing crimes like rampant retail theft, because if they get arrested and they spend time in jail, it's going to be bad for them. Yep. This is the people that we have in charge. How much money is going towards this department? How much money is going towards JCOD that should be going towards making sure that people that do bad things are not in our society?
So supporting this bill would be in opposition to the county's Care First, Jails Last agenda.
All right, that makes me want to say that I'm all for it. Let's hear more from the Youth Development Department.
Thank you for having me, and I think we all stole...
Oh, that was a different guy. Okay, this is the Youth Development guy. I'm going to have to look up who that first guy was.
Thank you for having me, and I think we all stole each other's notes as I looked at everyone's notes while we were waiting to come in. So I agree with everyone else that it could disproportionately impact the communities that we seek to serve the most, especially low-income communities of color. In terms of how it would affect our ability to provide alternative and least restrictive placements and a lot of the initiatives that we are pursuing, it could detrimentally affect those approaches.
This is what you got to know about Prop 36 and about the retail theft bills that are going through the legislature right now. Because there's a limited amount of money and a limited amount of priorities in a county's budget, putting these things forward, signaling that we're going towards tougher on crime, means that it is going to defund a lot of these nonsensical feel-goodery programs. So make sure you tell your local elected that you support it.
In fact, it's contrary to what we've been seeking, which are more opportunities for things like diversion. At the end of the day, we know that the mass incarceration and these more draconian approaches don't work, right? They don't reduce crime. What they do is they increase.
No, but not arresting at all, that reduces crime. having no consequences for repeat theft, especially for the youth and the rampant teens that are out there on e-bikes harassing people and looting a 7-Eleven, we didn't see this kind of insanity 10 years ago when we went care first, jails last. So you could tell me all you want that incarceration doesn't work. Doesn't it have more to do with what happens during incarceration? I mean, you have Gavin Newsom, who was up recording his podcast in San Quentin, talking about all these incredible programs we have to reintegrate people who are in prison. And I am so supportive of that, of, putting people into college programs and job training and really turning their lives around. But instead of going towards that route, instead of putting our money towards improving the jail experience, the prison experience, so we actually reform the people that got there, we don't want to send them there at all. So there's no consequences for bad behavior.
Incarceration, but they don't reduce crime. We know what works is diversion and upstream approaches, development, opportunities for people to go through restorative practices.
And of course, the people who are in charge of diversion and restorative practices, like the youth department, don't want their department defunded.
Again, to get at the root cause of why they did the thing that they did, as opposed to this more of a lock them up and throw away the key type of approach. So we believe that it could really, severely impact some of the good work that we've been seeing both at the youth level, and then I would open up the floor to speak more at the adult level, but I would assume it would be a similar effect.
We're going to go through every department that talked at this board meeting as we see what could be the beginning of the downfall of care first, jails last in LA County, because when state law changes, the county is going to have to react, even if they do a kicking and screaming. So grab your popcorn, stick around, because a lot of elected bureaucrats in LA County are very uncomfortable today. 800-222-KABC is the phone number. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC. I went back to the videotape. The first guy that we heard from, the one that said that once these bills pass, more police officers are going to be racist.
In fact, already harsher than those that are in many other states.
Yeah, that guy is the executive director of racial equity for LA County, Dr. Scorza. There's another department that might lose a bunch of funding if we have to start funding the jails again. Let's go to Dale in Culver City. Dale, hello.
Hey, Randy, thanks for taking my call. I was in jail one time for 30 days at LA County Jail. It sucked so bad, I never went back again. I was able to kind of clear my head up and never drank again after that. But I never wanted to go back to jail. Now they just let everybody out and give them some kind of program. And even the sheriffs in there, my neighbor was a sheriff. He said they won't even let people touch a prisoner anymore. They kind of have taken any power away from the sheriffs when people are in jail. They kind of wussified the sheriffs.
Well, yeah, I mean, the county is afraid of getting sued for anything that happens when someone's in custody. But for some reason, the answer became, okay, we just shouldn't send people there at all. And that doesn't make any sense.
No, I'm for mass incarceration and building lots of more jails.
So I'm going to guess you are opposed to care first, jails last.
Yes. Yes, indeed.
Well, Dale, thank you so much for the call. Appreciate it. And that's someone that's been to jail. That is not for jails last. How about that? A little firsthand experience. Thank you so much for the call. We're going to get back to the sound as we hear the heads of other departments shaking in their boots that they're about to lose a whole bunch of funding because we're going to have to start sending a lot more people to jail when Gavin Newsom signs these retail theft bills, and we'll see if Prop 36 passes. But first, little gift from me to you. How cool is this? 790 KABC welcomes Danny Elfman to the Hollywood Bowl on November 2nd. Tickets are on sale Friday at Ticketmaster.com, but right now, call in number 9 at 1-888-790-5222. Gets a pair of tickets to the show. Tickets furnished by Live Nation. Good luck dialing. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC. It is the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. We're here every single day from 5 to 6 talking about the local issues that matter to you most and taking your phone calls at 800-222-KABC. 1-800-222-5222. We read your emails as well at randykabc@gmail.com. That's randykabc@gmail.com. We're going through the sound of today's LA County Board of Supervisors meeting. Holly Mitchell called all the department heads that are relevant when it comes to the passage of a whole bunch of retail theft bills and the possible passage of Prop 36 to wonder, how is this going to affect our Care First, Jails Last initiative? And so far, you have a lot of departments who are very nervous that all of a sudden the money that they've been taking that should be going towards the sheriff's department and the carceral system and propping up the jails might not be going towards the Racial Equity Department, Youth Development Department, or JCOD, which stands for Justice, Care, and Opportunities Department. Let's hear what they have to say to Holly.
Thank you, Supervisor. Gina Ekus from JCOD. You've heard the Legislative Affairs team describe all of the increased things that will happen to individuals who may be coming into contact with law enforcement. It could be increased sentencing enhancements, the number of people who could file a charge, and which will...
Yeah, nothing sounds bad so far.
And which will eventually...
2025 is going to be a great year for California. Don't move out yet.
And which will eventually lead to the increase in the number of people who are arrested, and then potentially criminal protective orders that are issued. As a result, that may lead to more people who interact with law enforcement here in Los Angeles County and may eventually end up in custody. That can increase the amount of work, supportive services, and programs that individuals in our communities need.
Okay, so JCOD's trying to take the approach, okay, there's going to be a whole lot more people getting arrested. You're going to need us. Because, see, JCOD provides essential services like driving people to and from court in case they don't have a ride, because that's our responsibility, not theirs.
Especially for the work that the Justice, Care, and Opportunities Department does, and also my colleagues here with us, because we're all trying to serve these individuals who are justice impacted.
This is going to reverse Measure J, which defunded the sheriff's department, which defunded the carceral system in LA County, which the Care First, Jails Last initiative for the last 10 years has, to create things like youth development and JCOD in the Racial Equity Department. And JCOD's like, no, defund them first, don't defund me. Finally, after talking to Racial Equity, Youth Development, and Justice, Care, and Opportunities, Holly finally asked a question of the representative from the Sheriff's Department in this discussion about crime. Let's see what happens. Here is the representative from the Sheriff's Department, Chief Mendoza, on warrantless arrests, which means that once Gavin Newsom signs one of these bills, a police officer can arrest somebody for stealing even if they don't directly witness it, which right now is the threshold you have to pass. If the cop directly witnesses you stealing, they can arrest you. Otherwise, they give you a ticket.
This is Chief Joe Mendoza. I'm just going to speak on the warrantless arrest. And I think when I've heard people discuss this, it's really to allow deputy personnel to make detentions at a time when victims are not there to make the arrest. Also, there's...
Wait, why should the victim have to be the one making the arrest? I don't think we want to put that. We already have policies for retail establishments. Don't get involved at all. You're not going to see a lot of citizens arrest. That's why we need police officers to be able to, on the basis of the evidence and witness accounts, okay, this is the person who was stealing.
Also, there's times when victims are hesitant because of safety concerns, and when we are able to substantiate a crime, then we can take somebody under arrest. Most of these will be just book and release, and then we would later file with the district attorney and allow him to make the filing determination.
If we have a change in district attorney in 2025, that's going to be a big deal and make all of these laws a lot more powerful, because it's not just about what laws you get on the books, it's who you have enforcing them. Now, of course, Holly takes this opportunity to ask the sheriff's department, well, what about the racial equity guy who said this is going to lead to more people of color getting arrested? How dare you? Again, why are you making that insinuation? None of these laws have racial quotas in them.
I appreciate that. Any concerns shared, because I've heard from some of the community activists as well, given that there are still communities of color who experience over-policing for a variety of reasons, as we've talked about.
That's a loaded term. Over-policing. You know, I bet you could find a whole lot of people in communities with high crime who would say we are under-policed, not over-policed, because the victims of crime would like the police to show up.
Talked about our efforts to change the culture with regard to law enforcement. Is there anything you can say to appease any concerns that it will have a disproportionate impact on communities of color? And even with the stop and release, we know that even in a stop and release scenario, that there have been people who lost their lives because of the culture of law enforcement, the culture of and the experience too many communities and communities of color have had.
Yeah, those experiences are so few and far between. I don't know if you can use that as the rule. It's definitely the exception, but sure, all cops want to shoot people for stealing. Okay, Holly Mitchell.
With law enforcement.
Who do you call when someone breaks into your house?
With law enforcement. So are those fears or concerns warranted from your perspective?
I hear your perspective and what you're bringing up because of what we've seen, and so I acknowledge that. However, I think that right now the direction of the sheriff is, you know, as with any interactions, is to treat everybody with dignity and respect, and just enforce the laws that are in place.
I appreciate that.
That sheriff's representative was so nervous having to answer, no, we do our jobs, we treat people equally, stop putting stereotypes on police officers, but he can't offend her too much because she's literally the one that can cut the budget and would love to cut it more. Except these laws mean that they can't cut the budget anymore because all of a sudden we're going to need room in those jails. We can't close Bend Central Jail if all of a sudden the laws get a lot tougher. It's an exciting time. Let's hear what Assistant Sheriff has to say about this, Paula Tokar, about the situation in the jails.
With regard to ROSAS and our effort to be in compliance with all of it.
And ROSAS is one of these settlements like we've had with the state and we've had with a lot of other police departments and sheriff's departments where the conditions in the jails are horrible. And I agree that they're horrible. Then fix those conditions. If you don't have enough space, you need to create more space. But taking all the people out of prison does not work. That's how we have the explosion of the homeless problem. I'm not saying every person in a tent is somebody that was in jail and got kicked out, but there's a whole lot of those people out there. And then the people that are mentally ill, and you might say, and you know what, it is right, because we have not propped up our mental health system. LA County Men's Central Jail is the biggest mental hospital in the state. That's horrific. But instead of keeping them there where they can actually get some care and some medication, again, not as good as what it should be, you kick them out on the streets. How is that better? Care first, jails last is not care.
Obviously, any increase in the jail population makes things more difficult, makes everything more difficult, especially when we're dealing with staffing shortages as everyone else is. We don't know what the impact of these legislative motions will be, because there are so many steps that take place. We don't, you know, and looking at where the crimes fall, a lot of them are book and release, and there's opportunities to not have those folks come into our custody. So we have looked to try and determine what trend we should expect to see, but there have been so many people trying to prevent folks from actually coming into the county jail, and so many methods before that point. We just don't know how it will be. But any increase in the population will make things more difficult.
It really seems like the passage of these bills, Prop 36, and getting a DA that actually wants to enforce the law is going to throw to the wayside all of these alternative nonsensical programs that have got us to the place that we are. So a reason to be optimistic in LA County. How about that? The next step is when the anti-law enforcement coalition of the LA County Board of Supervisors comes up for re-election, stop voting them in, Holly.
Quite frankly.
Stop voting them in, Hilda.
Quite frankly.
Stop voting them in, Horvath.
Quite frankly.
Janice is okay. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang. We got more sound from the LA County Board of Supervisors next. This is Talk Radio 790 KABC. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC. Let's go to the phones. Jonathan in Culver City. Jonathan, hello.
Hey, thanks. Great show again. And maybe they should consider, I don't know, this is a little tough one, but maybe they should consider a jail like a square mile, 20 stories high, 25 stories high. Will put all the, the mental in this building, and they can take care of them, because it's going to take, to deal with all these people, it's going to take a huge building. They need to add up all the square footage of all the little homeless encampments and all the RVs and everybody that they think that they want to help out, right? But they're going to have to go to a building if they commit crime, and they're going to write up these tickets. They're going to bust people because people are going to mess up, right? So there isn't a place to put them. So that's what I was thinking. It's just got to be a big, huge jail, because there's so many of them.
Well, and that's what we're going to see if we pass all these laws, which are about to pass, and we have toughened the restrictions, but we don't see more incarceration because the jail is full and they don't want to build any more space, and they're closing prisons left and right in the state.
Anymore. That's correct.
Yeah, but the residents are going to be upset, and that is going to be the dividing line. If you keep not putting people in prison because you don't want to build the space when we need to put people there, that might be the thing that gets people voted out, because a lot of these politicians, Holly's an ideologue. A lot of these politicians, they go the way the wind is blowing. And if the wind is blowing towards criminal justice, not criminal justice reform, you're going to see a lot of them change their position on things like that.
Yeah, well, they're not seeing clearly. These people are going to have to be helped out, right, until they pass away, Randy. You have to see it that we're not going to be able to help some of these people and rehabilitate them in 3 to 5 years to where they're going to have a $60,000 a year job and can get married and have 5 kids and, pay all the bills. It's just not going to happen. There's hundreds of thousands of these people. They're never really going to be able to work properly. Doesn't matter how you rehabilitate them. So this is what they don't want to say, Randy, right here. This is why KABC is always the best. Randy's the best. They're going to have to take care of these people until they pass away, and they don't want to. They're trying to figure out how to not have to pay for hundreds of thousands of people that they're just not really fixable. It's not a nice thing to say, but we have to look at the reality. Back to you.
Oh, there are totally people that you're totally right that we're going to have to take care of for the rest of their lives. And that is why deinstitutionalization was a terrible idea, because instead of taking care of the people that needed the help that cannot survive on their own, whether it's because they're criminally insane or insane, we kick them out on the streets. And I would argue the cost to society, the financial cost of dealing with encampments and emergency rooms costs way more than if we were institutionalizing people that need it.
Yes, overall, that is correct. That's why you're the best. Hopefully, I don't know how you get through to Molly. Holly, how do you get through to that brain? That's the challenge, I guess.
Well, if enough people are loud enough, eventually these people fold, or you vote in somebody that won't. Thanks so much for the call, Jonathan. Appreciate it. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC. Let's go to Bill in La Cañada. Bill, hello.
Hey, Randy, I don't want to leave Catherine Barger out of this overpaid girls club touchy-feely stuff. She told John Phillips a couple months ago she didn't want to criminalize, quote, fare evasion by the unhoused. So she's a stealth part of this feel-good crowd, and I want to make sure that people know she goes along with this crap. She just plays like she's surprised by it.
Oh, she's been around for a very long time, and when there's only 5 members on the Board of Supervisors, they are all equally responsible for the state that we're in. Bill, I got to be honest with you, though. I need Catherine Barger to stick around because she is the godmother of...
Quite frankly...
No argument here.
Thanks so much for the call. I appreciate it. This is a true story, and we'll get to the rest of this sound on John's show tomorrow, maybe. The whole world could change in 24 hours. It's a crazy time. But this is probably going back 2 years now. And Catherine Barger was doing an interview with Fox 11's Marla Tejas, who I think is one of the greatest news people we have in Los Angeles, and I would consider her a friend. She was doing an interview, I believe, about COVID, might have been about Barbara Ferrer, and in 2 40-second clips, she said,
quite frankly,
like back to back so many times that it started to click in my head. Boy, she says that a lot. And then as soon as my brain got unlocked and I realized that Catherine Barger says,
quite frankly,
all the time, I started noticing in Board of Supervisors meetings that it wasn't just Catherine. It was also Hilda Solis.
Quite frankly.
It was also Holly Mitchell.
Quite frankly.
It was, I don't know if I ever got one from Sheila Kuehl.
I have no patience for people that don't wear masks.
But as soon as Lindsay Horvath got on there, she was on board.
Quite frankly.
Janice Hahn never did it.
That's your final warning.
I have listened to a bazillion Board of Supervisors meetings, and Janice Hahn has never said the Q followed by the F.
I love the bus driver.
She has said that, though, and I do love that. But I have so many different politicians that they use that as a crutch to try to make it seem like, okay, the thing I'm about to say is actually important. It's the weirdest thing, because if you're being frank now, were you not being frank before? I just never, ever, ever understood it. And so many of our politicians in California do it all the time. And once you notice it, you can't not hear it.
Quite frankly.
Thank you all so much for tuning in. It is always a pleasure to do this show for you every day. If you miss any episode of the News Blitz, you can download the podcast, go to kabc.com/newsblitz, share it with your friends, and go to Apple Podcasts. I believe that's the main service we're on. We should be on iHeart, Spotify. I don't know. But search for the News Blitz with Randy Wang. Subscribe, review. I'll see you tomorrow for another News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC.